What's going on, my friends? Happy hump day to you. Is it 5 o'clock yet? Rather work on loans, but I don't got those. Not right now. Rough market. All the kids laugh. All right. Let's tone the rock music down a tad. We got some inflation figures in today. What in the world's going on? Interesting stuff. We've got a few different things I want to touch on today. There is good news, though. Bad inflation report. You'd think that would just be terrible for the bond market. You think that would just absolutely sink us. But that's not what happened today. That is not what happened today at all. Let's take a look at the numbers here quick. So CPI, Consumer Price Index, measuring the cost of goods and services, looking at the year over year, looking at the core year over year. It came in hotter than expected. Look, it did. It just did. It came in hotter. 0.3% versus 0.2 expected. That's not that big of a deal, right? 3.7 versus 3.6, not that big of a deal. But if you compare to the previous measurements, we were hot. It was hot. Now they're saying the year over year numbers don't really matter that much right now because, you're just comparing it to last year where, things were erratic and so forth. The question is, where are we actually? What is the actual number? We're at 3.7. The Fed wants 2%. And they're hell-bent on this, by the way. Hell-bent. And 2% is a ways from here. So the Fed has a lot of work to do to get there. Will they be raising rates further? A lot of people think so. I think they've done enough at this point. Best thing to do would be for them to just get the hell out of Dodge. But we know they're not going to do that. So inflation numbers coming hot. But look at this. Want some good news? Boom. Look at that. Kendall, are you happy to see me or what is going on?
All we want to do is pump you up.
Yes, sir. 38 basis points. Chijoinga. Does this mean the bottom in bonds is in? Well, so far, this is the best sign we've seen. It's the best sign we've seen. Now, banks did not take to this today. We rallied 38 basis points. That should at least be the equivalent of 0.1%. We didn't get that. You can see on average, 0.02, 0.03. You probably can't see because it's teeny tiny up here. But on average, rates didn't improve that much today, meaning that banks aren't buying it. They don't believe that. They think it's another false rally, and they don't want to get caught again trying to chase market share in a thin market. So we didn't really get the price adjustment today for 38 basis points, but I don't care one bit. As long as we keep moving in the right direction, I'm happy, especially on a day like today. So the propulsion block right here, off of the order block right here, has held twice now. Dug a little deeper into it this time, but look what happened this time. It actually went propulsed higher. So it dug deeper into it, and we got a higher movement out of it. That is a great sign from a technical perspective. Terrific sign. Exactly what we want to see. Exactly what we want to see. And also closing at the high of the day. Guys, that's great. That's really, really good. So we've reclaimed the 25-day moving average here. Now we're looking at the 50 and then the 100. That's where we need to get on the other side of these daggum things so we can actually get banks comfortable pricing loans, pricing rates lower, significantly lower. That would be great for the market. It would be great for the market. But it would help people like myself who have hardly any loans to work on at the moment because it would create more opportunities. Right now, a lot of HELOCs, and stuff like that are going on, which are great. There's nothing wrong with HELOCs. HELOCs can be very useful. But it's tough for people who are purchasing homes to look at this thin inventory market, to know that there's tons of competition and know that rates are so high. Just tough. So this is a great day from a technical perspective. I don't care that the banks didn't buy it yet. They're going to figure it out. They're going to realize it. If this isn't a false breakout, and it definitely does not look like one. But we have seen this before. Ergo right here, this big green candle right here, and this one right here. Okay, so we have seen this before, and we've retreated. How many times can that happen? How many more times can that happen? This is what I'm facing right now. Mortgage demand stalled to a level not seen since 1996. That is before, just for perspective. You can say, hey, that's almost, 30 years ago. That's like, not pre-internet, but that's pre-high-speed internet. Those are the early dial-up days. Crazy, right? Demand for refinances dropped 5% for the week, 31% lower than the same week a year ago. Refinance is very few and far between. Applications for mortgages to purchase a home rose 1% week to week, but were 27% lower than the same week a year ago. So mortgage demand is just dried up. People want to borrow money when rates are low. Rates are not low right now if you consider where we've been in the past few years. Just aren't. They just aren't. Isn't it great, though, that you don't have to keep your rate if rates drop? When I first started in this business, it was 1999. Okay. I was calling people out of the phone book. This is when most people didn't even know that you could refinance. They didn't know what it was. Most of the times they thought I was full of it. I was cold calling people out of a phone book saying, hey, did you know rates are low and you can refinance with them? No, I already got a mortgage with the bank. I'm like, I know you got a mortgage with the bank, but what rate are you paying? Oh, well, 12.5% adjustable. Did you know rates are 7.25%? This is back late 90s when rates were the same as they are today. Did you know you could get 7.25%? It was like, how? How does that work? No one knew what it was. I spent most of my time explaining to people, how do you even refinance? What is that? How does that work? But so then what do I do if you give me a new loan? What happens to the old loan? Who do I pay now? People didn't know anything. And, that's how far things have come since then. It's crazy to think about that. But this is where we are. Now people know what it is, and people know that believe that 7% is too high. But how great is it, though, that you don't have to keep it? If you get a 7% today and rates are 6% tomorrow, you can go and refinance for 6%. You're not stuck with it. So that's one thing that's great about it, is that there's no prepayment penalties on any of these loans anymore, unless you get a very exotic non-QM loan, very exotic. I mean, like a day after bankruptcy type loan. Unless you get something like that, you're not going to have a prepayment penalty. So you go and you refi whenever you get a better deal. Now, if you get a VA loan and you want to do the the interest rate reduction refinance loan, you have to wait 210 days from your funding. But outside of that, if you have a conventional loan, FHA loan, you want to refi to conventional, you don't have to wait at all. So as soon as rates drop, you can go and you can capture it. That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. So let's not forget about that. How great it is that everyone knows that it exists. Oh, my buddy was showing this to me. For people, some of my investor buddies who watch this, I'm not going to do much charting today, but this is for investors out there who are looking for yield, this is a very interesting, this JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF, JEPI, yielding 10% right now. If you look at it historically, it's not that old. It's like from maybe a year and a half old, yielding 10%, and has done well for the most part just since its inception. Go back to the max. This thing was introduced at $50. It's at $55, so it's up 10%. Oh, that was May of 2020 is what it was. So it's a few years. So it's up 10% since then and has been yielding 10%. Yes, please. So for people who are interested, do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor, but check this one out. That's one to look into and see if it makes sense for you. Talk to your financial advisor. This is just crazy to me. So I don't understand what the idea is behind this. Americans' homes are worth more than ever, but tapping into that value isn't easy. What are you talking about, Emily? Emily, who are you? And what in the blue are you talking about? You can get a 95% cash out. Okay, HELOC. Rates aren't even that bad if you have good credit. What are you talking about? Now, there may be some caps. You can max this out at 500 grand here or there. There's some banks that'll do more than that. We've got several on the wholesale side that do this. But I think instead of wording it that way, saying tapping into it isn't easy, instead of saying that, just saying people aren't doing it. This is equity withdrawals on mortgage properties in the U.S., and you can see that it's declined significantly. Well, that's good, I think. Isn't it good? I mean, if people were just pillaging their equity, that wouldn't be a good sign. So the fact that this has dropped significantly, that's not bad. What are we talking about here? You're acting like it's difficult to access the equity when it's just the fact that people don't need to access it. Listen, we have record household wealth in this country right now. People don't need it. It's not as needed. People don't need to consolidate debts. People don't have as much debt. And you say, well, credit card debt just hit, the highest level it's hit ever. Yeah, but if you compare that to the savings rate has increased significantly more than the credit card debt has. And I know I talked about this in the show before and had the graphs and everything, but savings and overall household wealth has way outpaced the increase in debt. So people are okay. People are okay overall financially. A lot of people are saying, hey, recession's around the corner and so forth. We had a technical recession. We did. We had 2 negative GDP quarters in a row, but they were very small negatives and we bounced right out of it. So teeny tiny recession we've already had. I don't know that we've ever technically entered a recession, exited it, and then entered right back into one. It would be very, very strange to see that happen. Anything's possible, of course, but it's not what I'm seeing. America's construction boom. All right, I shared this the other day on Facebook because a lot of people don't understand why supply is so constrained. Aren't there home builders out there? Don't they want to build houses? Don't they know there's demand for houses? Yeah, but they're also really, really astute business people. Like the new construction game, the reason I steer most buyers away from it or try to is because you are just a pawn in this game. I mean, they have the king, the queen, the rooks, the knights, they have all the pieces. It's their contract, it's their way of doing business. You are just a buyer and you're going to lock your rate when we tell you your home is done. Then you'll do what you need to do. In the meantime, you shut up, sit down, and don't say a freaking thing. That's how you get treated when you're a buyer in new construction. It's not the experience that I want most people to have. And I think that, when you're buying new construction, you're paying top dollar, So a few reasons I don't love it here in San Diego, at least, is you're not able to buy entry level stuff here really. When you can get some attached stuff. But if you look at most of the attached stuff that's new, it's in the 6s or 7s. It's not like really entry level prices. And they have big HOAs, mailers, and stuff like that. So what's happening is a lot of builders, not just the big ones, medium size and the small builders too, are going to build multi-family units because it's much easier for them to buy that building, have it cash flow, build a portfolio, and build a huge company out of it, or sell the building to a REIT or to a real estate investment firm, private firm. So it's much better business for them to do that because if you're building houses, remember all the stuff you have to go through. People have to come, they have to fall in love with the place. If you're building rentals, people don't need to fall in love with it. Just like, hey, I need a place to sleep. How much is this? Cool, let's go. It's not as big of a decision. And there's a way bigger renter pool than there is a buyer pool. So what you're seeing is a huge construction boom. Millions and millions of units are being built, not for sale though, for rent, which brings me to this point. Now, apartment rents on the verge of declining. Doesn't mean they've really declined yet, but they're on the verge. If you were to ask me, like, what is the actual greatest threat to the real estate market? This is like the secret sauce data point that people just don't remember for whatever reason about the crash. What happened in the crash, and a big reason why, it wasn't just the supply that was dumped in the market. It was because there was rentals that were so cheap. Rents were so cheap back then. So cheap. People were renting houses in San Diego for $2,000 a month. I remember when we first moved here, I rented a house with a pool. It was $2,350. House with a pool in San Carlos, $2,350. That was before the crash. Rents were super cheap. So, cheap rents don't help the real estate market. Rising rents helps the real estate market. So the greatest threat that we would have here is that rents all of a sudden would come down significantly. Now, even if they did, though, we're talking about apartment rents here. Let's be honest, apartment rents. So it's not really that comparable. If we saw single family home rentals start to drop, rental prices start to drop, that would be the threat. Apartment rents being cheap may keep people renting longer, may keep more buyers on the sidelines longer, but it's not a massive threat because eventually people are going to want a yard. People are either going to get a dog or have a kid or both, or they're just going to be like, yo, I can't stand Jeff, my pothead neighbor. It just reeks in here constantly. Jeff. So at some point, everyone's going to grow out of an apartment. But interestingly, I spoke with a family this week. This young woman and her parents who live in this home, and it's her childhood home, and they've been renting it for 32 years. 32 years. 32 years they've been renting it. I asked her if the landlord sends them Christmas gifts and wine bottles and stuff. She said that they don't.
Hated it.
I'll send you wine bottles if you rent for me for 32 years. Anyway, so that's one thing I am keeping a close eye on. What are rents doing? If we see a big decline in rents, that will keep more buyers on the sidelines. All of that could be trumped pretty easily by just a tiny decline in rates. We don't need a huge decline. A tiny decline in rates, get us into the fives and watch what happens. Demand will come from every direction, particularly in the San Diego market. Can't speak for the other ones. Why does every single link have to refresh? Oh, this is a big one. So all these links, by the way, are posted in my in the YouTube description. So most people in the real estate community are aware of this, but buyer commission lawsuits could upend not just the relationship between agents and LOs, but upend the relationship between agents and their buyer clients. Because essentially what's happening is the lawsuits are saying that the seller shouldn't have to pay the buyer's agent, essentially, and that a buyer would need to pay the buyer's agent. So if you were a buyer's agent, you would have to negotiate a fee for your services with your potential buyers, which would probably cause a lot of buyers to not use buyer's agents and to just go straight to listing agents when they were interested in a property. Could completely change the way this all is going to work. That's happening right now. Multiple lawsuits there could change things a lot. Would this be good or bad for the real estate market? It would be a big change for the way that the whole thing is constructed internally. I don't know that it would necessarily be bad or good. I don't see it really going one way or the other. But I do think that it would hurt a lot of agents who are in the middle to lower production range. I think it would be more difficult for them. And it's always been, listings are king in the real estate business, but boy, that would become emphasized, bold, underlined, exclamation pointed if something like this were to happen. And it's all happening right now. So very interesting stuff to check out. If you are unaware of this and you're in the real estate business, definitely read up on it on that link. That's a really, really interesting one. Oh, I thought this was interesting too. This guy's saying, so my friends in the industry, this guy's saying the best time to ask for Google reviews is when your clients get their offer accepted. So that's when they're the happiest, because things can happen throughout the transaction. You don't want to ask for a review afterwards. I think it's a little, I don't know. Feels like you're cheating. It's like you should ask for your review after the entire portion of your services has been rendered, in my opinion. But that's also a good read, so I put that one in there too. This is something that has been a big deal. We've talked about house hacking a lot lately. People who are buying homes and renting out rooms, and what they're finding is that the willingness for people who are homeowners to rent out a room in their property is quite significant. There's just a ton of people who are interested in that. This is one way that we kind of can help curb, the housing shortage and ultimately the housing crisis that we have, renting out rooms. It's something that may not last forever, but I do know people who have Airbnb. By the way, you can Airbnb just a room in your house. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. And as long as it's your primary residence, there's no restrictions in San Diego. So if you live at the property, if it's your primary residence, you can Airbnb the rooms. The only restrictions that have been placed are if it's not your primary residence, then you have to do the lottery and get, permission and blah, blah, blah. But if it's your primary residence, you live there, you can Airbnb it. So if you live there at the home and let's say you have a casita, you can Airbnb that, no problem. If you Airbnb rooms or the downstairs or whatever, you can also do that. So just FYI, for people who are trying to be ultra efficient with it or who are really maybe stacked up, just with the payment and everything, the cost of home ownership. This is one way that a lot of people are sort of curbing that. And because of the housing shortage, you're able to not only do it, but get pay-dough on this stuff. People are making absolute bank renting out rooms, especially our veteran buyers who are house hacking. They're getting $1,500, $2,000 a room from people. It's cheaper than anything else. That's the thing. Like, what do you want to go live in a studio apartment by yourself in some, I don't want to say anything negative, but if you can find a studio apartment for less than $2,000 a month, where is it going to be and what's that going to look like versus living in a house with your buddies? Do you know what I mean? So people are crushing on this right now, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. If you had the stones, if you were the one who put pen to paper and made it happen and bought the house, you deserve those rewards. Plain and simple. You deserve those rewards. I thought these are all interesting reads, by the way. I don't bring these to you unless I think they're worth reading. 1 in 5 millennials believe they'll never own a home. Okay. Attention, real estate friends, attention. This is reality. They are believing this now. They are being trained to believe this. A nation of renters is what Wall Street wants. And they are slowly programming this into younger generations. That's actually better to rent. Buying a home is risky and, oh gosh, it's expensive. And whew, wouldn't you rather just rent and walk to work? Rent one of BlackRock's buildings. This is what they're hoping will happen. Now, Redfin did this survey. So some really good insights in here, but 1 in 5, essentially millennials, believe that they're just never going to own a home. They already believe that they are never going to own a home. 20%. Those numbers are going to increase over the years. And sooner or later, probably sooner rather than later, it's going to be true. I'm dead serious. It's going to be true. And that's why we, on the professional side, have to encourage people to look to take the opportunity if you can. Remember, the best thing about real estate is you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to time it perfectly. You don't have to, go to school and learn how to do it. You don't have to look at the charts and realize you don't have to do any of that. Just talk to your friends who bought real estate. Ask them, what did you do? They're going to be like, oh, we just got pre-approved and looked at houses, bought one. Now we've got 300,000 equity. They didn't do anything spectacular. They just got into the game. That's it. Get in the game. Time is on your side. Get in the game. Oh, rates dropped. Cool. Let's lower our payment. Rates dropped again. Cool. Let's lower our payment again. House keeps going up. I don't see there being really anything that can stop this. The only thing that could really stop this is if the Federal Reserve were so hell-bent on crushing real estate values, which they kind of seem to be, that they went and just dumped mortgage bonds on the market and spiked mortgage rates up to 8% or 9%. If they did that, hopefully, as a whole, as a country, we would raise absolute hell. But if they did, that could slow us down to the point where our decreased supply and demand, finally the demand just drops below the supply. And then you start to see prices come down. That would be, that's the only thing that I can see that's really possible. And they have been decelerating their activity on this. And the chart today would actually lead us to believe that perhaps, just maybe they're done selling. Just maybe. This is the first time we've really had a nice bounce, a nice improved bounce. So we got one bounce off the propulsion block, didn't really send us anywhere. Then we come back and touch it again, and this time we make a higher high. We're not higher than the high of last week, so we're not setting the world on fire or anything. Okay, we're still in declining succession week. So that's 2 weeks ago, last week, this week. All right, so we're still kind of declining here, but we're really hanging out. We're hanging out. It looks very similar to this, right? Which didn't do anything for us. But at some point, the capitulation is over. At some point, you're going to bounce and it'll stick. Are we at that point? That is the big question. By the way, we're live here on the Facebooks, the LinkedIn, YouTubes, the Twitter. If you want to say what's up or ask a question, feel free to do so. Won't be on here too much longer, but I do want to say this. It's interesting to me how slow we are right now. Just a few loans we have to work on. Just not much happening. A lot of people who are pre-approved or wanting to get pre-approved, there's not a lot of urgency out there with buyers. It's very difficult for buyers to understand what's going on and to understand when opportunity is there, because opportunity looks the exact opposite always. If you look at the crash, the best time to buy was when no one wanted to buy. That's always the best time to buy something, when no one else wants it. And right now we still have demand that is exceeding supply, but supply is creeping up a little bit. I do think it's very, very important here for buyers to get the best rate. Fortunately, we offer wholesale home loans, no lender fees, no points. And I've been really encouraging everyone to take a look at the 2-1 buy down and get yourself a 2% lower rate year one, 1% lower rate year two. The seller needs to pay for it. So that's got to be something that's agreeable. It's a great way to, let's say, you're getting a VA loan today at 6.5%. Well, you're going to start paying 4.5%. That's a great way to mitigate things over the course of the next couple of years while you give, time for inflation to really recede and for rates to really drop and get yourself into something even better. So that's my advice in this marketplace right now. Released a new video today as well on the YouTube channel. The updated version of a smarter way to buy a home in San Diego. Trying to make most of my free and available time right now. If you have any questions about loans, feel free to give me a shout. That's what I'm here for. I want to help. I will hook it up like a tow truck. I'll get all this stuff posted in the YouTubes. You'll have a great evening, and I'll be here from you. Take care.